All right, algebra. We are just continuing with our unit on quadratics. There's no time to waste. We got to keep moving here. So we're on the fourth lesson of the unit. It was solving quadratic equations. This one's actually not that bad. I mean, I think honestly, with these three examples, you should basically pick up the premise of it here. So we're going to solve these equations for x just like you solve any equation. So we got 2x squared minus 98 equals 0. So some number x is going to be squared, multiplied by 2, and then subtract 98 from it, and it's going to be 0. We solve this just like we solve a normal equation, in the beginning anyway. So we see it's an x squared, but I still want to isolate the variable. Remember when we solved equations, our goal was to get x equals. That's still our goal right now. So our first step is just add 98, get that to the other side. So now I've got 2x squared equals 98. This is 2 times x squared equals 98. So I need to get rid of that 2, just like if this was 2x equals 98. So I divide by 2, and I've got x squared equals 49. Now, remember when we solve equations, we always do the opposite operation, right? So if it was x plus 3, we would subtract 3 to solve. It was 5 times x, we would divide by 5 to solve. So here, the opposite of squaring, what is the opposite of squaring? Square rooting. Good job. Thank you very much. That was really cheesy. I know. Sorry. So we're going to take the square root here. We take the square root of both sides because the square root cancels out the square. So an exponent of 2 is canceled out by a square root. So I get x equals, which is what I want. Now the square root of 49 is 7. We all know that. Our problem is this is not the only answer. I mean, it couldn't be that easy, right? The problem is there is another answer that will work, not just 7. It would be negative 7. If you plugged negative 7 in, negative 7 squared is positive 49 times 2 is 98, minus 98 is 0. Negative 7 is also a solution. You just need to remember, when you get to this point and you take the square root of a number, your answer is going to be a positive or negative of that number. You can just write it like that with that little plus over the minus. That means x equals plus or minus 7, positive or negative 7. You also could write your answer as x equals 7 or x equals negative 7. These two things mean the same thing. I don't care either way. Obviously a little quicker just to write the plus or minus. All right, so let's look at example 2 here. T squared minus 25 equals 0. Honestly, this one's even easier than the first example. We're just going to add 25 to both sides. We get t squared equals 25. Now, we just take the square root of both sides. We get t equals square root of 25 is 5, but remember it can be positive 5 or negative 5. So it's going to be plus or minus 5. And that leaves us with our last example here, 2g squared plus 32 equals 0. So again, my goal is to isolate the g, get the g alone. So first step, I'm subtracting 32. I got 2g squared equals negative 32. So that was my first step. Now I've got to divide by 2, so I'm going to do that. And I got g squared equals negative 16. So now our next step, right, take the square root. Square root of negative 16. So what if we plug that in our calculator? Our calculator is going to tell us error, because you can't take the square root of a negative number. That is not possible. Whenever we take the square root of a negative number, we're going to get error in our calculator because, I don't know if you heard my dog barking, he's barking upstairs. So we take the square root of negative 16. You're looking for a number that you can multiply by itself to get 16. I can't do 4. 4 times 4 is 16. I can't do negative 4 because negative 4 times negative 4 is also positive 16. This is actually an imaginary number as your answer, but we're not worrying about that right now. Our answer is no solution. There is no solution to that equation. It is impossible to solve. All right, so there's those 3 examples. Come back for the second example with the triangle. That'll be in a separate video. But you can see it's not too bad, so good luck.